So Dominic is not gonna.
Okay. Regular meeting for June 17, 2025, with town session, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag. United States of America. One nation. Under Jesus. Please come along.
Here. Vascuity,
Here.
Moranti. Mizan,
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Copenhagen.
Here.
Roberts. Here. Roney. Sarwar. Roloff.
Here.
President Dukes.
Here. Have an introduction and a second dispense with the reading of the minutes of the May 20th meeting. And place it on, introduction says Eric, and introduction. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Similarly with, committee reports, can I have an introduction, second place committee reports on file? Rashad and Jared. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we have communications, and I have an introduction and a second to receive communication. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go with, bills.
So the 25,000.
Here, let's see. Exactly.
Your bills
Okay.
is not working, but every other.
Yeah, I can help.
The
But
next
what
one.
is it? So can we ask a question? The TJR excavating, 25,500. It's right here, contractors, but for which one is it? For what, which project is it?
Did I do that? Oh,
No, I have it here. Oh, Barry, your name is here. So it has to be for the site.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I had a question about JV computers.
that's okay.
That's always the same.
So this month we have 6,100 and 6,400. One of them is looked at is for, it was for the 3 units, right?
One's for,
But the other is for others. Yeah, it seems very high. This one's the other one. It seems very high. I mean, this much, I mean, that one is probably not going to work out again. That's just a fee for $20. But I don't know, I think we maybe offer, look up more relevant. Computer lookup. It has not been described.
How much is it? We can't see it.
Sorry?
How much is it?
One bill is for 6,400 and one is for 6,000.
That's the thing.
It's pulling up a different one. So going back a couple of months ago, October, the hourly bill was 2,600. I think it wouldn't be bad to go back and look over time at the billing, the hourly billing, and then have a discussion about.
I asked Heather. Sorry.
When you take a look at exactly, how it varies by month and whether or not that's reasonable. And then have an explanation if it's a particularly high month.
Yes. Well, the invoice. All the funds and what they did. The licenses and later software license.
One of them is licensing, and that's not something that will change, but,
Okay, and
the other is hardly.
for the year, it's a 2-month payment.
There was some bills that were missed back in the shuffle and Tracy left that were overlooked that were going to be in this.
Oh, okay, so some of this is from the previous month.
Any other questions? Okay, good. Take a motion and second pay bills. First up. Darren. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton. Vascuity.
Aye.
Moranti. Piazza.
Aye.
Norris. Aye. Kernhagen.
Aye.
Roni. Darwin. Rolo. President Pietro.
Aye. Okay, we have some resolutions that we introduced last week. For those who don't familiar with our procedure. First one is appointing commissioner duties. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton. Aye. Vascuity.
Aye.
Piazza. Norris. Kernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts. Darwin. Rolo. President Pietro.
Okay, next resolution is about purchasing and the invitation of the Red Dot site equipment.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Vascuity.
Aye.
Moranti. Piazza.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Kernhagen.
Aye.
Darwin. Rolo. President Pietro.
Aye. The next resolution authorizes the budget transfer to the police department. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Vascuity.
Aye.
Moranti. Piazza.
Aye.
Morris. Kernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Roni. Darwin. Rolo. President Pietro.
Aye. The next resolution designates Celebrate Stream 2025 as the 2+5 month. So we have Roll call vote.
Councilmember Belton. Castelli.
Aye.
Moranci. Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Fairhaven.
Aye.
Tony. Sarwar. Bola.
Aye.
President Dupliccio.
Aye. Next resolution authorizes a contract with the Barrage Group for Pt.1 land running services. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Castelli. Moranci. Mizan. Morris. Fairhaven.
Aye.
Sarwar. Bola.
Aye.
President Dupliccio.
Aye. The last resolution from last week is a resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Friends of Hudson Youth. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranci. Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Fairhaven.
Aye.
Aye.
Tony. Sarwar. Bola.
Aye.
President Dupliccio.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, new resolutions. The first resolution, there's supporting documents, is to renew our insurance with Marshall and Sterling. Can I have an introduction in a second? Gershaw? Any questions?
So we're paying $290,000 for 135 for, these are all covers the insurance for the police department,
It's for everything,
for everything.
everything.
You mean what?
And then our building, us, and
And
Everything in the city is what?
everyone.
And did it go up from last year?
I think there was a small increase.
Yeah.
But that's not. Yeah. No, that's insurance to say.
It'd be good to know what it was last year.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranci. Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Fairhaven.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Browning. Sarwar. Bola. President Dupliccio.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution accepts a donation to the fire department from Hudson Development Corp. in the amount of $10,458.90. Introduction and a second. Oh. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranci. Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Fairhaven.
Aye.
Aye.
Browning. Sarwar. Bola. President Dupliccio.
Aye.
Carried.
Before we discuss the next one, can I get an introduction in a second? For a resolution that calls on the New York Power Authority to increase land capacity target. Introduction in a second, please. Ola and Jennifer. We have people here tonight to speak to this if you have questions. Michael Richardson. And don't know if we have the same thing.
I'm saying just down here. With the co-founders of concerned health professionals of New York and also this one.
Any questions? Before we vote?
Well, can you tell us a little bit what is this all about?
Pretty good.
I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Michael Richardson. I am the co-facilitator of Third Act here in upstate New York. That is a group of some elders that promote democracy and also the rapid transition to renewable energy. I represent Third Act on the steering committee of New York Renews, force behind our landmark climate law. And I'm also co-chair of Public Power of New York, which is the force that's behind passing the Build Public Renewables Act. Now, in reading this resolution, it may seem that it's simply a feel-good resolution to ask the New York Power Authority to build out more solar energy. But it's more than that. It's much more than that. Recently, 2 weeks ago, the city of Albany Common Council passed this resolution. They're showing the leadership that is necessary these days as the federal government literally takes back almost everything that is being done to promote rapid transition of fossil fuels to sustainable renewable energy. So we turn to local government and state government to do something. And what we have in New York is something rather unique right now. You may not know that we have the largest public authority for power in the nation. It is the New York Power Authority. It was created back when Franklin Roosevelt was governor. It was the template that was used by Roosevelt when he became president through the Tennessee Valley Airport. But at the time back in the 30s, it was to harness the electricity off of with the Build Public Renewables Act 2 years ago. It empowered the New York Power Authority and mandated them to pick up the gap that might occur as the private sector tries to meet these goals that we have in our landmark climate law. As you know, we're supposed to be at 70% renewable energy by 2030. We're not going to make that goal. And the state recognizes this. And this is one of the reasons that they turn to the power authority to fill in that gap. So a plan came out in January this year. I'm going to talk in terms of gigawatts. 1 gigawatt is the electricity that's necessary for 750,000 homes. Okay? So they came up with a plan in January to build out roughly 3 gigawatts of solar energy generation. It's not something to sneeze at, but it's a far cry from what we need. So the Public Power Coalition stepped up, put together a campaign, put some pressure on the trustees of the New York Power Authority, and they've now come back with a modification in the plan of 3 more gigawatts. 6 sounds pretty good, right? But what we need them to do, that's what the resolution calls for, is 15 gigawatts. So we're turning to the municipalities again, to City of Albany, City of Hudson. There's a proclamation coming out of Albany County, we're talking Kingston, Ithaca, on and on, to make a statement to the power that we recognize that there is an absolute necessity for them to move towards this 15 gigawatts. It's your voices that's showing that kind of leadership. We need to stand behind the coalition and the people of New York to get this done. So we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Question. How is this going to be implemented?
Is this a bunch of solar farms that communities will, vote against?
No, not exactly. First of all, the scale of the solar is not rooftop, that's distributed solar. And there's that small side of community solar. So this is on the upper side of community solar over to utility scale solar. So often what happens is NIPA, your power authority, comes in with a plan that they either put together themselves for implementation or they're partnering with the private sector to get this done. It's guessed that most of the plans, most of the programs, projects that will put online between now and 2030 will be these partnership arrangements. So yes, in many cases, they do have to go in front of a planning board or a zoning board. One that's come online most recently is City of Albany, where it's a small unit of 1.5 megawatts. It's on an old landfill. Now, one of the also benefits of this type of project, and hopefully City of Hudson will be a queue for some of these ones. There's a program in there called the REACH program. It's an acronym, REACH. But what it does is it takes some of the proceeds, because this is public utility, public authority. So the profits are not going on to a corporation. They're being kept back with inside the bonding and the operations of this public authority. So a percentage of the profits are then reallocated for low and middle income utility payers to offset their electricity costs. So City of Albany, talking about leadership, they were the very first one to get one of these projects, solar projects, that's linked to the REACH program. There's another one up in Fort Edwards in Washington County that's going online this July. We're gonna have a big ribbon cutting ceremony up there. So kind of the direct, indirect answer to your question is that many of these projects have already been approved. Some of them are yet to be approved, but all of them naturally have to go through our rather unique system here in New York State of home rule planning and zoning.
Do either of you have a card? I'd like to contact you about another idea.
I didn't read the cards in from the car with me, but I'll make certain that I know how to reach you,
Okay,
so I'll reach out to you. Okay.
I'd love that.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Well, okay, I'm Sandra Steingraber. I'm a public health biologist. I retired from the college early to take a post as a senior scientist for the Science and Environmental Health Network. And I very intentionally moved here to Hudson because of the political leadership and the progressive ideas. In fact, I can walk everywhere, so I'm very pleased this is my new community. I was concerned health professionals in New York played a leadership role in the providing the science as the back in New York. So I just want to provide the background saying this is a very well drafted resolution. Having as a scientist seen a lot of these resolutions, it's very good. And furthermore, what's playing out behind this is an attempt by the gas industry to overturn our fracking ban, expand the Iroquois pipeline, resurrect the Constitution, bringing a lot of cracked gas back into New York, trying to get us to crack our bedrock again, which will create tremendous air pollution and public health problems. So anytime we can increase renewable energy and show our resolve to do so is a bulwark against that. So I, as a public health scientist, am working very hard to try to close the door on further extraction of fossil fuels here in New York and undermine our climate act. But it's a two-fisted fight, so some of us are working hard to stop fossil fuel extraction, and at the same time, we need to be encouraging renewable energy, and that's what this resolution is. So I'm very excited about it.
Thank you. Yeah, you're ready to go.
Councilmember Jackson. Dascoli.
Aye.
Morency. Reason. Morris. Carnegie.
Aye.
Tony. Sarah. Rolla. President Pietro.
Thank you. Next resolution authorizes the transfer of a vote rescue boat to Casper. An introduction and second. Jennifer and Lola.
Do we get the tax deduction by donating something like that?
I don't think we need actually something right now.
So why we don't want, we don't,
Excuse me?
why we do not keep it? What's the reason?
She bought it, just started now.
So we're not gonna, we cannot sell it or anything?
Good. But it's just in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's not that good.
And
But, yeah, I mean, any other questions?
Well, they often go with some of the
Yeah,
hours
yeah,
that,
all the local.
Yeah.
I'll be generous.
but it's just keeping.
Okay, but hold on. Good.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Vasquez.
Aye.
Moranti. Mizan. Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Star. Bola. President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution just renews our contract with the Hudson City School District for School Resource Officer. An introduction and a second. Tricia and Mo. Questions? Roll call vote.
Oh, 1 second. So this is the city is providing, it costs $50,000.
We don't pay it.
We don't pay because the county, right? Okay.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Vasquez.
Aye.
Moranti. Mizan.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Rami. Star. Bola.
Aye.
President Pietro. Carried.
Okay, the next resolution approves a contract for home and access to home housing rehab specialist services. Can I have an introduction and a second? Jennifer and Vicky. This, for those who don't know, is they will be doing the preliminary assessment work for the home grant, which I think Vicky is.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So this is, for consultants, services, and billing and so forth. The grant referenced is 520,000. Will the consulting fees be paid for out of the grant? Is that how that works?
Thank you. Any other questions?
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Vasquez.
Aye.
Moranti. Mizan.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Rami. Star. Bola.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next, there's a missing resolution here, we'll get to it. They're all related to JLE. First, is to establish an escrow account, because I believe they're kind of backwards.
Yes.
Let's do the next one first. The next resolution classifies a JLE project and declares us to be agency. And I have an introduction in a second. Sean? Vicky? Question?
Yeah, I have a discussion, Crystal, you're on, yes?
Yes.
I am on.
I had a discussion earlier with Crystal about this. It's fairly complex in that there's a zoning portion of SheiKra as well as the building portion of it. Ordinarily, these things are handled by the planning board. We have not been a lead agency on full SheiKra like this before. And so I think it would be helpful for Crystal to talk us through why it is appropriate or not for the council rather than the planning board to be the lead agency.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, so there are two ways that this really could proceed. One is with the council being lead agency for the full project. Right now, there is not actually an application that's pending for the planning board, so the planning board could not take on lead agency status at this juncture. So to move it forward, the only one that actually has a request in front of it is the council. So they would be the most appropriate body to be lead agency. And what Margaret had mentioned about usually not handling it from the building perspective, just on the zoning perspective, that's absolutely true. But in this situation, because the zoning request is tied specifically to the development and there is a site plan and proposal for that development, it would be appropriate to handle seeker by looking at the entire the entire request, both the rezoning to a multi-dwelling use, as well as the actual development that's being proposed and requested with that rezoning. They go hand in hand together. That's why, you know, at least initially, why I'm looking at this and why we're looking at this is the common council to be lead agency. If the applicant was to go, or I'm sorry, if the developer was going to put the zoning request before the common council and contemporaneously apply to the planning board for site plan approval, then the planning board and common council could coordinate and have the planning board be lead agency, where the common council was just commenting on the planning board's review of secra. Either way is fine. Under the timeline that has been submitted by the developer, having the common council start with lead agency status right now would be, I think, really the only way to be able to meet that proposed timeline, to be able to get the lead agency notices out and actually go through the secra review, and have a determination by the fall.
So in order for us to do this, we are going to need detailed site plan, which I think we don't have yet. Is that correct, Crystal?
We have a site plan. I don't think it's been uploaded. It hasn't been uploaded to the city's website yet, but there is a site plan and an EAF that has been proposed. The site plan is a fairly general site plan as of right now, which is perfectly fine for starting that process. There are additional pieces of information that the council's going to need to be able to move forward with a more detailed secra review. And that's something that is going to need to be discussed with the developer on this. I'm not sure if the developer is present tonight. I thought they were going to be, but I could be mistaken. They are here. Okay, so there is going to be additional information, such as, for example, and this is something that you're going to need to look at for both the rezoning and the project itself, is parking. Now, take aside the questions about what's in the city code. Parking has to be looked at from a secret standpoint as well, an environmental impact standpoint. How much parking how many cars are going to be needed for a multi-unit development? How much parking is on site? How is that going to impact the city? Another one is traffic flow and pattern for both the site and the impact to traffic for the city. Additional factors to take a look at are, there's, I believe, current conditions of the building, like, asbestos was found inside the building. I know that the developer is planning on reusing this building and not tearing it down. They will need to provide, at least a preliminary mitigation plan to the council to see how that's going to be addressed. Those types of factors there needs to be information gathered on them, provided to the council, and it needs to be reviewed as it's going through the secret process.
So when HBC was looking at this building, and I think we talked about this briefly when we did the presentation of, they identified pretty extensive asbestos issues, and it was built in the 60s, I think. And they were initially thinking of just taking it back to the studs and so forth, and just that part of it was going to be, I think, something like $5 million to do that. Just demolishing and starting over was even more costly. And your plan is to keep the building, which is good. There was also some fuel tank or oil tank underneath the site. So I think there are a lot of things here that we're going to, and this is not typically the kind of secret review that we do. We're going to need an awful lot of information. I'm assuming that you are going to do a full engineering study to assess what remediation has to occur, correct? And so when would we have the information from that study in order to make any determination?
Not sure the exact schedule, I can certainly find that out and get back to you.
Okay.
And we can potentially do it as a preliminary and then a final.
Okay.
There's definitely some hazardous materials in the building.
Yes.
We're aware of that.
Sorry,
One of the resolutions is for them
is to
to
get an escrow.
escrow,
Yeah.
and we'll be able to hire consultants for value.
I saw it. I'm just bringing these things up because, I think the plan for reuse of this building, personally, I think it's a great plan, but I'm very concerned about the timeline. And I want to make sure, given that this is not the first entity that has looked at trying to reuse this building, that we do it thoroughly, and that we're not, pushing something through without really looking at the details of some of the hazardous conditions that exist in that building. So that's really where I'm coming from here. I'm just concerned about the timeline.
Understood.
And have you, I think you said you had seen the study that HPC commissioned, or that you're aware of the findings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen what the study, I guess, there's another study that the school did years ago, because they wanted to put a road in back the way that you guys want to. Have you seen that?
We actually decided against that.
Oh, great.
With this application, that's off the table.
So Crystal said that there is a site plan, but it hasn't been uploaded yet. Is that something that we have access
I
to?
have copies if you like, they're small size, which they're very much like what you saw on Monday last week.
Okay.
But I'll.
I prefer electronic, so I'll wait till it's uploaded.
Thank you.
You had a question about zoning, right?
The zoning won't affect the area around, it's just the property that you will own.
That's what present.
So. Got it?
That's it.
Okay, so let's, vote on the, classification first.
Councilmember Dawson,
Aye.
Castelli,
Hi.
Ramsey, Lisa.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Hagan.
Aye.
Tony. Sauer. Bola.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye. Next resolution, about establishing escrow. Can I have an introduction and a second, please? Okay. Question. I'll vote.
The only comment I would make on this is that it's done for a $2,000 initial payment. And I think that it's gonna cost a lot more than that to do a comprehensive.
So if I could just step in, so this is just an initial deposit to get the process started, particularly on my end. As we're going through this, if the council may very well want to bring on an engineering consultant to either look at any sort of mitigation plans, or all of those would be initially prepared by the developer. But to just do a review on them, if that's the case, then what we'll need to do, and what this anticipates, is that at subsequent council meetings, the council can request additional replenishment of the escrow.
And I'm not sure, this is for Crystal's involved.
Correct. I
Okay,
understand.
I'm sure.
Yes, but I think that we will
Oh, yeah.
need an engineering consultant because we are not qualified to evaluate whatever the developer is putting it on.
Okay. Please.
Councilmember Felton.
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranti, Mizan. Morris. Hagan,
Aye.
Roberts. Browning. Sauer. Volo. President Pietro.
Aye. So there's another resolution. Crystal, can you explain the last resolution?
Hold on, let me,
Which one is it?
Didn't make it to the agenda?
Did it make it to the website?
Right.
okay, are you talking about this, the secret resolutions for 325-17.1?
Yes.
Okay, let me just pull that up real quick.
Isn't that the one you said is missing?
It's here. What do you mean, didn't make?
No, there was this actual secret resolution for 325, or for the amendment to that portion of the code. And if I can share my screen, I can actually pull it up.
Okay.
So we don't have it on our website? Okay.
So this is similar to the last resolution that you saw. This is in relation to the proposed local law that was introduced at the informal meeting. It's chapter, the amendment to chapter 3, section 325-17.1. This resolution essentially says that it is a unlisted action and that the council will be serving as lead agency for seeker review. This is required for certain types of zoning amendments. So what the motion would be is that it's a, it's a motion to declare the intent to act as lead agency for the State Environmental Review Act in relation to local law B of 2025, which is the amendment to section 325-17.1.
Sorry, Crystal?
We didn't
Yes.
use the balance.
Crystal,
It's the one that was before.
Crystal, this has nothing to do with JLE, correct?
No, it has
this is-
nothing to do with JLE. The JLE resolutions were completed.
That's all done, okay. So this is about, really relates to the local law pieces, okay, but we cannot see your screen.
Oh. Huh, it says I'm sharing.
We see it. I see it.
You see it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
you
see
saw,
it.
okay. So I'm gonna go back again. Hold on.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Cool. Yeah.
I'm seeing this. Okay, now I can see.
So again, this is just the resolution that declares the lead agency status and moves forward with the seeker review for this proposed amendment, this proposed local law.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, introduction and second, please. Margaret. First up. What was called me?
Aye.
Jackson. Aye. Moranti, Mizan. Morris. Hagan,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Browning. Sauer. Volo.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye. Now, Crystal, the next 4 resolutions are related to our executive session.
Yes, but actually if I can, there was actually 2 other resolutions. Another one that related to the amendment to section 325, and it may have been skipped, but it was the one that referred the local law to the county and the city planning boards that was uploaded to the city's website. I don't think that was voted on tonight. It's a little,
did.
yeah.
I saw it online, Crystal, because I remember reading.
Take it down. Let's stay.
I think it just didn't get up to the agenda, but I did read it.
We can do it. Can I get an introduction and a second, please? Margaret. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felton.
Aye.
Jackson. Aye. Moranti, Mizan. Morris. Hagan.
Aye.
Carver, Rolo,
Aye.
President DePietro.
And then, Tom, there was one final resolution before going to the ones that require executive session. I'm going to share my screen. This was also a late starter. I apologize. It's a seeker resolution. This is for the ADU law. It is again just declaring lead agency and making sure that seeker is started for the ADU law before the council votes on it.
Any questions? So let's get an introduction in a second. First, Margaret and Jennifer. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote.
Councilmember Bell. Jasper.
Aye.
Moranti. Mizan. Morris.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Carver, Rolo,
Aye.
President DePietro.
Aye. So before we deal with the resolution that we're going to be discussing in executive session, we have one, I think someone from assemblage is on, they want to just give us an update. Do it pretty quickly.
From where?
Assemblage, we're doing the project down at Hudson River Park. Are you there, Wendy? Someone?
She's muted, she's on, but she's muted.
Ah, there she is. You're muted, Wendy. You're muted. And there you go. I can't hear you.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Tragedy averted. Speaker. Thanks, everybody. I'm Wendy Andringa from Assemblage Landscape Architecture, and I'm joined by Jared Pristak from Labella Engineering. And we're happy to be able to give you an update on the climate adaptive design plan for Henry Hudson Riverfront Park. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as you may recall, we started our work designing this phase of the park back in September of last year. We are now approximately halfway through with our design process, and the key milestones that we've accomplished are performing the site investigations. We completed those around the beginning of this year. And then we jumped into the design of the draft engineering plan, which is what we're going to share with you today. Important meetings that we've had during the process, stakeholder meetings. We've met with the Conservation Advisory Council, the Hudson Sloop Club. We've met with DPW. We've met with the Columbia County Conservancy, the Friends of Hudson Parks, and also we presented at the Hudson Planning Board meeting a couple months ago. So we've been getting some good feedback and planning a good amount of programming for the park. Just as a reminder, this is a community-driven design that came out of a year's worth of community outreach that we conducted in 2021 and 2022. And we're really, again, just a reminder, designing for both today and the future. We're going to have be impacted, the park will, by sea level rise. And as you can see in the photo below, this is a very common flood condition that happens every winter. And these kinds of floods are only going to be exacerbated by climate change, which is why we are doing this climate adaptive park design. Just some quick context again to remind everybody of the parts of the park we're going to be talking about. Dunn Warehouse is in the center of the park, and this area that we're going to be designing is really supportive of the Dunn Warehouse redevelopment. So we really consider these two mutually supportive. And we're really looking at this sort of very natural and vegetated south side of the park, just north of Paul Coularusso's property. So that's pretty much Railroad Point, Ricks Point, and Lighthouse Point. And then, of course, the Ferry Street Bridge is still under construction, but that's going to unlock a new avenue of pedestrian access to the park. So just a quick update on the design. We're happy to say that through all of our investigations and our permitting applications, the design has remained intact. I'm going to zoom in here so I can share where we are right now. But the white dashed line is really an outline of the area where we're designing. And really, one of the key points is the waterfront pier and elevated lawn at Ricks Point. We're also proposing a system of boardwalks and paths that will interconnect all of these features. And most importantly, the new pedestrian bridge, which will create safe access from the Dunn Warehouse side over to what's called Railroad Point, where we're proposing an education area that will support the NAC Center and Hudson Sloop Club. So all of this area around Slip 2 will be restored to living shoreline, which means the shoreline will be planted with native plants that are adaptive to water level rise. So we're sort of changing the shoreline so that it better adapts to rising waters. We're proposing a new water access point over by the NAC education area. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about these features in a minute. But also importantly, we're proposing off-street parking along Broad Street. So a portion of this area is going to be dedicated for parking spots. And then there'll also be some more on-street parking all along Broad and Water streets. So without going into much more detail, I'm going to advance to the next slides. So really, Ricks Point is, as I said, is a central design feature here. We're elevating the point and proposing a waterfront pier. So it's elevated to remain above sea level rise projections through 2100. And what's important here is that we're using soil to elevate it that's from the site itself, which is a very cost-effective way to do this. Here's a rendering of Ricks Point and the waterfront pier, which really will become the heart of the park. It really expands the park green space and creates more waterfront seating. So the lawn is elevated and we're proposing a couple more weeping willow trees similar to the one that's on Lighthouse Point right now. I wanted to show in more detail also the nature play area. This is across from the Dunn Warehouse. It really supports the programming for the new community uses that will be there. And the play features and benches are made from tree logs. And there are also 2 picnic table areas on either side of it. So again, this is about children being able to connect with nature and also enjoy the newly restored slip right next to it. So Railroad Point will become an education hub. As I mentioned, this supports the NAC Center's programming. So the pedestrian bridge connects over that water body. People will no longer have to access it through the service drive to to the east side of it. There'll be a large gathering area and we actually are proposing 2 overlooks over the living shoreline. So again, lots of ways to connect with the newly restored shoreline. The waterfront access point is really for beginner kayaking. And we've also proposed a floating dockway that will get people to the end of Railroad Point. And then lastly, educational signage is a very big part of this design. We want people to be able to learn about the environment, the aquatic and estuarine environment that we're restoring. And lastly, Lighthouse Point. We've added a new accessible path where there was not one currently, so that people of all abilities can get to that end of the waterfront. And in this sort of cove here, we're proposing new stone seating, similar to the stone seating that we showed you on Rick's Point. And the benches that are currently there will be located facing the water along the path, because we know those are very highly used benches. So we're creating a variety of waterfront seating types here. The planting restoration is going to be a simple palette of riparian woodland in the NAC Center area. We want to sort of control all of those vines that are there and restore the woodland that it once was. The living shoreline, as I mentioned, we're proposing no mow lawn on the elevated lawn, and then several sweeps of grasses and meadow throughout. And just last, I wanted to show a map of all of the ADA accessibility improvements in the park. All of these pathways that we're showing are going to be accessible to all users. So that's a very important aspect of waterfront accessibility. Okay, so next I wanted to hand it over to Jared, who's going to share a little bit about the cost estimate and how they broke down the cost.
Thanks, Wendy. So as you can see, we're projecting at the moment a total cost of $2.8 million, just over that, to construct. The way that we've structured our cost estimate here is to break it into 5 tasks. So mobilization and site preparation, our foundations that we're going to need for the various structural components that we're proposing, and then the features that are going to be on Railroad Point, Rick's Point, and Lighthouse Point. So we've broken them out appropriately here. We are going to be refining this cost estimate as we move through from the draft design to the final design and start getting some more detailed quotes from different suppliers. So I'm looking forward to having a much more honed in cost shortly.
Thanks, Jared. I wanted to finish off now that you've seen the cost with a reminder that this will be a grant funded construction. And we have a list of grant opportunities that are forthcoming. There are going to be both federal and state grants that we have to keep our eye on. But once we complete our process this fall, that's going to be the time to be on the lookout. And I wanted to note especially that the Green Resiliency Grant Program, which is second in line here, a new round of the 2025 grants were just the grant opportunity was just announced, which is for $60 million in 2025. So there are a lot of opportunities out there, and we're also looking at ways that the different components of the park could be funded if they need be by different grants. We feel that Railroad Point is a very good candidate for educational grants, and Rick's Point is is a shoo-in for resiliency grants. So this is a very, very hopeful time, and our next steps are going to be, we're in a review period right now for the month of June. And then after June, we're going to complete our permitting applications and all of the supporting materials for that. We're going to produce the final design documents and bid specifications, and we're going to produce our final report that will enable Hudson to start applying for these funding grants. That's the extent of our update, and thank you very much for your time.
Quick question.
Thank you, Wendy. A couple of questions.
Yes, do we, what kind of grants are these? Does the city have to match those grants?
Some of them are match grants and some of them are not match. So we're going to be obviously keeping our eye on the ones that don't require a match as well.
Okay.
And there's a possibility that some of the labor could be done in kind by the city. So. Any other questions for Wendy? Okay, let's move along. Before we come back to the last four resolutions, let's just get these laws.
Yeah.
Put on the table. And that's, so the first one, local law exception B, firefighting section 325, chapter 325, C. Can I have an introduction in a second? Jennifer. Roll call vote, please.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Vasquez.
Aye.
Moranti. Mizan.
Aye.
Norris. Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Roni. Sarwa. Lola.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye. The next law that we're bringing our guest is related, it's the one that Dominic has asked about, changing who determines flood damage. Introduction and second, please. Margaret and Prasad. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Vasquez.
Aye.
Moranti. Mizan. Norris. Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roni. Sarwa. Lola. President Pietro.
Aye. So at this point, can I get a motion to go into executive session, because we're going to talk about what we've been talking about for a while now, called the assessment. Barry, second. Benefit, all in favor of going into session?
Aye.
Is there any after executive session for the second?
Yes. I think the way Logan can do it now, you can just lock them up and then they come back. Yeah.
And will there be any more business after
Sure.
that time? No, but I mean, you don't have anything else.
No, this is it. Okay.
Okay, just check. Thank you.